Welcome to this episode of Disrupting Doctors' Careers. I'm your host, Dr. Bubbers-Jones, and today we have Dr. Catherine Fernando with us. So I'll tell you a little story about how Catherine ended up here on this podcast. So as one does, I was on Facebook. I don't spend that much time on Facebook, but I was on Facebook, I admit, and I was looking at a forum. And actually, which forum was it? Do you remember?
It could have been Mascara. Is it Mascara Medics? Are you in that
one?
No.
No. It could have been the breastfeeding. Huh?
Oh, no, not the doctor.
No.
No.
Something to do with women. Something to do with women, probably. I can imagine. Maybe.
Oh,
anyway.
My goodness.
It was a
Facebook
no,
I know
group.
what it was.
Oh, which one?
Was it Medics Mums and Dads Buy and Sell group?
It could have been, because I am on that one.
Yeah,
I am on that one. Here we are advertising. It's a really good group, guys. If you want to buy stuff, by the way, but this is not what we're here about. But actually, this is about retail and selling stuff. So anyway, but I digress. So Catherine basically announced that she'd launched her new product, which she'll tell us all about. And the reason why that was really interesting was because there aren't that many times I come across doctors. I've seen thousands and thousands of doctors doing a whole variety of things, but not that many have actually gone into retail, like developing products, particularly for doctors, right? So Catherine has designed a fantastic item she's going to tell us a little bit more about. But what I'm also really interested about is her general story. Like, how did she decide to go from doctor, mother, to actually designing a really, really valuable item for her community, friends, and workforce of doctors. So she will tell us a little bit more about that. But anyway, welcome to this episode, and thank you so much for joining our podcast. How are you today?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my business, which is Iyasu.
Yes.
Iyasu.
So let me start. Let me take things back to how you got to Iyasu. So,
sure.
One of the things that stood out for me, especially when you signed on, as I mentioned, was that you're a mother of 4, you're a GP, you're an entrepreneur, and you celebrate women in healthcare. So I really want to hear a little bit more about what makes you you and how this led to Iyasu.
Okay. Well, yes, I am a mother of 4, and my youngest is 7 and my eldest is 15. I am also a GP, and I've worked as a salary GP and a locum GP and a GP retainer. GP wasn't actually my first choice of medical career. I was a trainee rheumatologist before I decided to go into general practice. And I've had lots and lots of experience in hospital medicine and doing my MRCP before that. So actually, when I was a junior doctor, I was told that I might actually never have children. And that's because I had to have chemotherapy for Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Gosh.
So I was diagnosed with that when I was just finishing off my first year as a junior doctor. Which was obviously a terrible shock.
That must have been a huge shock. Like, how did you manage that? How did you deal with that? I mean, you've thrown it in like quite casually, but I mean, it must have been such a huge.
It was actually really unexpected.
Yeah, of course.
So, when I was a 4th year medical student, I remember in our ear, nose and throat block that one of the consultants used me as the patient to examine. And he said, oh, you've actually got some palpable lymph nodes in one side of your neck. And I was like, yeah. So they'd been there for quite some time, but we didn't take it any further at that stage. And as a junior doctor, I was sitting in the mess one day. We used to get doctors' messes. They used to give us on-call rooms and messes and everything, but I don't think they do anymore. So I was sitting chatting to one of the surgical trainees, and he said, look, if you're worried about it, we'll just take it out for you. So the next week I was in theatre with one of the consultants that I'd worked for, who was taking out my lymph node, and I think 14 days after that we got the pathology report, and it was nodular sclerosing Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Gosh.
So that was really horrific.
Wow, well, it's great that it's great that you that it
no,
led
it
to
is.
that,
And
and you got on the list next week. I mean, that's
totally. Because I wasn't actually unwell at all. I didn't have any weight loss or night sweats or itching.
It was
all
just
the other
the fact that
things. It was just like a persistent lymph node in one side of my neck. So I was really well. I was full of energy. I was working so many hours a week as a junior doctor, but I did have this, and I think as a medical student you often imagine that you've got lots of things wrong with you, but then you never do. But then sadly I did. So
that's as a doctor, you imagine there's lots of things wrong with you, and I can attest to that. And everything will go wrong in any scenario, whether it's planned or unplanned. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it does. You see that, don't you? Everything happens to the doctors. So anyway, so I started my treatment journey, and I had a couple of months of chemotherapy and a month of radiotherapy. But before the chemotherapy, I underwent some counselling. I was told that I might not have children. I was asked if I wanted to freeze any eggs, but that was going to delay my treatment. And at that stage, because I'm obviously so old, the treatment was just experimental. So I decided, no, let's just cure the cancer. We don't want to be mucking around with anything. We're just going to live now and worry about the rest later. So we did all that, and I went back to work 4 months later and carried on. So wearing lots of wigs, actually, because I didn't have any hair, but I had some fantastic wigs, and I never had so many compliments about my hairdos. But I think the patients got a bit confused because I used to change them every day.
Wow.
But anyway, there's a really happy ending to that story, because I'm still well and healthy 20 years later, and just getting on with life and my career and finding lots of other things to keep me busy.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And what have I taken from the story? I'm actually just like developing an image of you as resilient. You managed to get through some really, really tough challenges. I mean, and also, changing careers as part of that. I know it's not the same as the Hodgkins, but you glossed over going from rheumatology to GP. That in itself, I see that as like a big life choice or move, especially when you've committed part of your career to a specialty. What actually led to you to move?
Well, I think it was a few factors. I mean, I used to be incredibly ambitious career-wise. So I was the one who wanted to be a consultant by the time I was 29. And then as I grew up a little bit, I think priorities started to change. I had initially trained in rheumatology and general medicine, and then I moved to a different town to be closer where my fiance worked, and I had to drop the general medicine, and then I didn't find there was as much variety. My previous placement, our ward had done everything. We never discharged any patients. We just had complete continuity of care. If they were sick, we'd look after them on our ward. We'd put the central lines in ourselves. We were there for them the whole time. And whereas when I was just doing single accredited rheumatology, it wasn't like that. It's like someone would phone me and say, can you come and review this gout? And I think I'm not that excited. So it wasn't me. I just kind of lost my personality and my love for it, and decided that wasn't my niche. So I did some interviews and managed to get into a 1 year general practice training scheme, because I'd already done lots and lots of medicine. So I just needed to do some gynecology and pediatrics. So that seems to suit me a lot better.
Great. So I completely understand that. And obviously GP does open up doors to a whole variety of different things. And as someone who's incredibly ambitious, I'm not surprised that you now I know a little bit more about you, that you've gone and founded Iyasu. But could you tell me a little bit more about how and why, and what does Iyasu stand for?
Sure, absolutely. So Iyasu is a Japanese word and it means to heal. And the symbol that we chose for Iyasu is an iris flower. And the iris flower represents faith, hope, and wisdom, which I thought were very suitable qualities for medics. The reason I founded Iyasu was really just circumstantial. I was looking for a new doctor's bag for myself, and I just noticed that everything on the market was really masculine. That the shapes were masculine. A lot of them just are the Gladstone bag, which was invented in the 19th century when only men were permitted
Is
to go
that the
to
black
university.
leather thing that kind of
Black
clicks
leather, brown leather,
looks
yeah,
really
that just
ugly and smelly?
opens up. So it was
We all know what
invented
that
when
means. Yeah.
it was invented before women were allowed to practice medicine. So
Or even allowed to have a job, I'm sure. In many cases.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Totally. and even once they were allowed to be doctors, when they got married or when they got pregnant, they were asked to leave the profession. So I just thought over the past 150 years that something should have changed, really.
Yeah.
Because there's now more female medical students than male medical students, and particularly if you look at the world of general practice, then it is becoming predominantly female, actually, which has its own issues, etc. But I wanted to show that we are a wonderful part of the medical workforce, and I wanted a bag that reflected our personality and our style, but it was also really functional for the job that we wanted to do. So I made sure that they had all the pockets in them to hold the medical
let me
equipment
just
that we carry.
step in a little bit, because
Sure.
actually you've really highlighted some really important points, especially like for doctors who are considering becoming entrepreneurs. But people don't say, "Oh, I want to become an entrepreneur." Usually, they are in the mid. They are experiencing a problem, or they can see a problem, and they're trying to identify what the best solution would be for it. Right. So in your case, you recognise that as a GP, there wasn't a bag that really reflected you and your needs as a woman, as a doctor, and that was actually kind of recently designed, considering this has been 150 years old. And interestingly enough, as you've identified, that you're not the only one this affects all women doctors, or even male doctors, I'm sure, because this bag is not a great bag to be carrying around from an ergonomic perspective, says the occupational health doctor.
That's very true.
But yeah, so you've identified there's a problem, you've explored various solutions and designing something that would be suited to you, because it's always you in the middle of this, but also the individual or a target market, which for you is women in particular. And also I note that these bags are vegan friendly, right? So why was that an important part of the design?
Well, I thought long and hard about all the different qualities that I wanted to bring to this business. And the first of them was, the superficial aspect of it is that I didn't like the style. And although I've never been really into top designer brands or anything, I do like fashion, and I think a lot of women do care about that and want to look nice. So the first of it was to look good, to be a lovely bag that you wanted to have. Second was function, but third I started to think about the choices that we need to make in our world today, and a lot of people are very, very concerned about the environment, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't contributing to more pollution just for the sake of business and for making money. So thinking about the materials involved in these bags was really, really important to me. So our bags are made predominantly from recycled plastic bottles that would otherwise go into landfill or go into the oceans. And they're also made of vegan leather. I did look a lot into different types of vegan leather, and I originally wanted to make them entirely from plant-based vegan leather. And there are some really, really interesting aspects of that certain, material engineering. There's one which is called Pinatex, which is made entirely from pineapples. So that's actually the way I wanted to go. But sadly, when we got the Pinatex samples, they were looking a little bit like elephant skin,
Right.
and there were practical issues, like you had to wax them every 3 months, and I thought, I don't think
That's
anybody
not
could
practical.
be bothered
But
with that.
actually, that leads to another
So-
question, because there's the idea, and there's actually getting started in doing it. So in order to realize the basics of your idea, what was one of the first few steps that you took to actually get going and then start looking at pineapple skin?
Yeah, that definitely came a little bit later.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I just started drawing some sketches of the bags that I wanted and the internal views of them, and then I went along to Business Gateway, which I think is an organisation which is throughout the UK, and I pitched my idea to one of the advisors there, who liked it. So that gave me a little bit of encouragement and confidence. And he actually referred me to Scottish Enterprise, who were able to provide a small amount of funding to send me to somebody who could advise on innovation expert support. And that was a really, really great formative process to go through, because they looked at everything that somebody who's in, say, Dragon's Den would look at for you when they're considering a business proposal, and they looked at all sorts of things that I hadn't researched properly, which was incredibly good. So the first thing was the name, because my bags weren't called Iyasu at that point. My bags were called Missy Doc, and with some hideous pink logo that I had designed myself, with the Y as a stethoscope and the O as the bell of the stethoscope, and they're just like, no, this is horrific. We think that the overall idea is really good, but this
branding.
Yes, branding.
Yeah, I get it.
Definitely.
Totally get it. Yeah.
And there's lots of things I didn't know about. There's intellectual property protection, so they were able to steer me in that direction and advise which attorney to have an appointment with, and they do an intellectual property review of your whole brand, and the name comes into that a lot, because you've got to set up a watch service to make sure that other companies aren't copying you or naming their products the same as your brand, etc. So it was actually a completely unknown field for me. I think, although I've been creative, I was made to do A-level physics instead of art, because I wanted to do medicine. So this wonderful idea I thought I had actually turned into, I still think it's a wonderful idea, but there were lots and lots and lots of practical considerations that I needed expert advice to steer me towards, to make sure that it became a well thought out business.
That's really incredible, and I really appreciate all the steps that you had to take to get to where you are now. You've literally scratched the surface, I'm pretty sure, but it is the tenacity and getting the right kind of support and advice that's gotten you to where you are now. So you've already covered a bit of this, which was like the actual materials that you're going to use to design to actually make the bags. Do you have any other insights about any other challenges that you faced in designing and launching your products?
Well, after trying to design the bags myself based on sketches, I quickly realised that I didn't have a fashion degree, and
The question is, did you need a fashion degree to do what you were doing?
You definitely don't, but you probably do need someone who has one.
Exactly.
Yes, it's recognising who you need on your team.
Because I don't want loads of doctors going out and doing a fashion degree before they then start, because they will.
No,
they will.
You don't need to, I know. Well, absolutely, they have the ability to do that, but I found somebody in the UK who is a designer who had 30 years of experience and had worked with worldwide brands like Sweaty Betty and Mountain Warehouse. And
awesome.
they were used to making bags that were fashionable, mostly sporty fashionable. This is a little bit different to that, but most importantly functional. And they had the experience of working with manufacturers and advising about materials and things. So I didn't need my fashion degree. I just needed the vision, and it's, you know, obviously useful that I was a target market and I knew what I wanted, and hopefully that reflected what lots of other people who are in my profession wanted too.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. And so where are you now with Iyasu? So when did you first launch it?
So we actually just launched in March.
Oh my God, was it March? Was
yeah,
that when you posted?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Awesome. I really got in there, didn't I?
Yes, absolutely. That was me just launching
Nice.
after quite a number of years of planning, actually. And
how long would you say that took?
I'd say it took me 4 years.
From idea to launch?
Yes.
Wow.
And
wow.
I thought it would be a lot quicker than that. But there were delays with designs, and we had to do multiple samples to refine the products, and COVID came in the middle of it, so I was you know, trying to work and homeschool for children in primary school who were all at different levels of primary school. And
were you working?
Yeah, I was working as a GP.
Oh my gosh.
And then my mum, she's got Alzheimer's, so, and I'm an only child, so I had to move her out of her house.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I was going to move her into sheltered housing near me, but unfortunately she couldn't go there because she just didn't have the functional capacity to do that. So she's ended up living with us, and yeah, just, you know, life is really busy.
Yeah, life stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
So what kept you pushing forward with this? Because a lot of people would be like, don't have time, not doing it, not a big deal.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have done it without my husband. He's been incredibly enthusiastic and encouraging. I think I would have probably stopped quite a long time ago if I didn't have that other person who believed in me. And I also think it's because Business Gateways directed me to some funding, and because I had taken that funding and used it, I thought, well, if I don't do this now, then that's a waste of this money, and somebody else could have had that. So and then you get so far in that if you stop, then you lose everything. And you've just got to have that resilience just to keep pushing till you get there. But yeah, it's not easy, but it's a wonderful place when you are at the point where you do have all the resources and you can say that you own this, and you're really proud that this is you know, this is my own business, and that I have done this and named all the bags after inspirational women in medicine and told their story. So, and I'm really hoping, if it's successful, to give 5% of the products to the Malala Fund to help support girls' education, because I'm, you know, really passionate about education and empowering women. So I think that'd be great thing to do.
So what does successful look like to you, Catherine?
Successful, I think, is, well, it's a lot about female empowerment. It's obviously that I don't make a loss. I think even just selling my first batch of bags that I've ordered would be successful for me. Ultimately, successful is being able to give some money to charitable causes such as the Malala Fund, and hopefully being able to produce special editions to support healthcare charities. So, for example, do red bag for HIV, yellow for, say, Marie Curie cancer. All the colours that you associate with the charities, I feel they could be put into designer bags, and a percentage of those profits could go directly to that healthcare charity. So that's what I would like to do long term. Yeah.
Great. And so what advice would you share for doctors who are venturing into retail alongside clinical practice? Like, what kind of insights would you give them?
Well,
or encouragement or discouragement?
all of it. And I thought I could do all this as well as be a doctor. but I actually had to stop being a doctor for a year. I've not given up, but I was just doing too much. I was trying to do a diploma in dermatology with Cardiff University, and being me, I didn't want to just pass that diploma. I wanted to get distinction in that diploma, and I wanted to launch a business and look after 4 children and support my mum who's got Alzheimer's. And so it was actually my husband again. He said, no, something's got to go. You've got to really, really focus on this. And he was absolutely right. But I did love my job in general practice, and I wasn't feeling burnt out or discouraged or anything like that. I was actually found it really, really satisfying and fulfilling, and I was bawling my eyes out when I handed my resignation in. But it was definitely something I had to do. I had to focus entirely on this business. It's a lot of work. You've got to give your full commitment to it. And what I didn't realise was that it's not just your product that you've got to put out there, you've got to put yourself out there too. And I keep getting told people buy from the person behind the brand, not just the brand. And when you do put yourself out there, then obviously you're going to be vulnerable to criticism. So when I got like a small article in the local paper, then you kind of read the comments, and some of them are really, really nice, and then some of them are pretty horrible. So there was this guy, he didn't know me or anything, but he's like, oh, GPs, you're not just lazy, but you're incompetent, and clearly you used your time well during lockdown. You were, you know, working on handbags instead of trying to save people's lives. And do you think that really hurts? Like, I was actually working hard in my practice. I was home teaching 4 kids on my days off. I was studying for a diploma in dermatology. I was trying to get a shopping slot for my mum's shopping when she was living at home. It was, you know, it was awful. But then, you know, you get people that are going to hate. So
it's hard, isn't it? Because you know, I know how I would feel reading something like that and seeing something like that. And you know, these people, they've got their own issues, but still, after all the work and the sacrifice and the vulnerability and the putting yourself out there, that people are still literally don't have a clue as to what you're going through, and actually invest some time in writing really awful comments about other people they just don't know. I mean, what is going on in this world? Do you know what I mean?
Just got to. It does hurt at the time. I have to say that one pierced me right through the heart. But I didn't respond to it. But luckily, some nice people did, and they're like, "You should go and see your GP about that chip on your shoulder."
Ironically, maybe that's the reason why he was so. Yeah.
So it was good, but I'm actually going back to my practice in June.
So, so you're going back. Yeah, so it sounded like you kind of closed the door forever, but actually it was just you were taking a sabbatical to work on your business.
Yeah, I was just taking a year out. So I'm taking 15 months out, and somebody's going on maternity leave for a year, so I'm going to go back and do 2 days a week for the next year and go back to that, plus try and run a business on the sidelines. So
good luck. I mean, I can speak personally from doing both. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all, and definitely does or can lead, but most likely will lead to burnout if you're doing both. And it's quite difficult to do both really well with your full self. I have to say, being an occupational health doctor, running Medic Footprints, being a mother as well, and being a wife, and being everything else you are in your life. It is not easy when you've got business in the mix, because you can't switch off. It's very difficult to be like, oh, finished, I'm going home now, because it is your other child. Like, I know. Unless you decide to, you know, but it is your other child that needs nurturing and needs your full attention at all times.
I totally understand. I'm just not ready to entirely stop being a doctor, and if I don't go back now, then I'm not going to be able to go back unless I do like a retraining program, because I've had 15 months off and I've had my appraisal. They've said you've got to go and do minimum number of sessions, otherwise that's it, all over. So it's just I didn't leave it in the right way, so I need to go back and yeah.
I mean, it's just more of a caution for doctors who are listening, just to really understand the realities of being a doctor or doctorpreneur in that way.
Yes.
But I think your insights and your passion and your commitment to being a woman, ambitious woman, to healthcare, but also to medicine is just phenomenal. And I know that this is only, I say the beginning, but it probably is just the beginning. And I can't wait to see what happens next with your brand and with you, most importantly. And yeah, I mean, actually, because I was thinking this, because I was doing a clinic at a local, so occupational medicine guys. So I was doing kind of medicals and management referrals, and I needed a bag that held mainly my laptop. And I just couldn't really find anything that was like, and there are a few medical stuff, but I couldn't really find anything that was like nice to carry.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah. I can get you a bag.
Yeah, well, clearly.
Definitely. Yeah, all of mine hold laptops and they're all beautiful.
Nice. Nice. Well, before we finish, please tell our audience, A, where to get your bag, and B, how to reach out to you.
Okay, so my website is iyasubags.com, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of the Facebook groups that we've mentioned in our little advertising summary earlier.
On, but yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Catherine, and wishing you all the best with the days and years and decades moving forward as a doctorpreneur.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
Take care.